Hi everyone, so back here and thank you for watching. Just figured I'd give an update on the last case or story I was telling a few months ago. Wow, it's almost a year ago actually I was telling the story, but there's been a lot of lessons really for me and things that some people can take away as well. So the last time I spoke about this, I was talking about how this particular person, I'll call him the defendant. So this defendant had almost scammed me. Okay, fine, maybe not scammed me, that was a bit of an exaggeration, but really it was just really a bad deal. It just went south right from the start. And what I was explaining to you the last time was that I had just found out from my solicitor that he was involved in multiple cases as well. So there were, I think, 2 or 3 other cases that he was involved in, and he was the defendant again. People were claiming against him for the same type of thing. So some, it was to do with non-occupation, occupation of a property. Another one was something similar, but all in property. And that really scared me and also gave me a little bit of confidence to say, okay, it's not just me, really. There is something about this person that's making people, lose their minds. So anyway, that story did go on. We continued to go to different hearings. So we went for a hearing with the courts again, and then in that session, it was more apparent that maybe my case wasn't really documented well from what we had said. And at this time, I had gone with a different barrister. So if you're going to the court, you have to use a barrister and not just a solicitor, because they do 2 different things. And I couldn't use mine for one reason or the other. So this was recommended by the same solicitor anyway, so I would go with them to the court. So he was like, listen, we just need to restructure how this is worded, how this claim is worded, so that it's clearer. Because in that court hearing, that judge wasn't really sure how property works, how these contracts are set up. It's not everyone who's in property that may understand these things, although the law is very structured and definitive, but sometimes some of these arrangements are not so clear. This one, for example, is a commercial lease, so it may not make sense why, if it's a commercial lease, it has to have certain rules in it. So like regarding occupation or regarding, HMO rules, because it's a commercial lease. So some people think it's for commercial properties, but commercial leases can also be on residential properties. Anyway, so we decided to reword this and create or file an amendment of claims, which the judge approved, and we did that. And then I was also instructed to return the keys. So at this point I had not returned the keys, not because I didn't want to, I hadn't been asked to anyway, but I just thought, well, if he wants them, he's going to ask for them. But I'm also waiting for some goodwill, right? Some return of money, which I didn't get. So I just held on to them, and I knew he had another copy, maybe 2 more copies anyway, that he showed me when I went to go view the property. So it wasn't really an issue of access, it was just returning someone's assets. The judge at that time instructed me to return them because it might have been an issue, or it would have been an issue if I hadn't. So I didn't have a problem to it anyway. It wasn't going to change my life. I knew he already had access to the property, so I returned the keys. Now, we filed the amendment of claim. Well, the judge told him that, look, you can also file an amendment of defense, and whatever cost you incur will be on the claimant. So if you go to the most expensive representative in this country, the claim or the fee would be on the claimant. He did not go, he didn't file. So we filed our amendment and we served that to the court and served that to him. He didn't file, he just didn't care. I'm not sure if it was really from a perspective of arrogance, or was it more, I don't know, just who he is, I don't know. He just didn't file, okay? So nothing was filed from him, no defense, nothing. I'm just doing everything as the court is asking. So we filed, and then we were asked to come in again for another hearing. This is a couple months later. It's still going. And at this point, my costs are also racking up. And I think at some point I was talking to the barrister and I wanted to give up. And I was just telling him, look, I don't know if this is still worth it, because this is starting to stack up now. Now, the good thing is, even if we hadn't won the case, it would just mean we'd walk away with nothing. So I wouldn't be liable for anything. For example, he was claiming his rent up to the time that we filed, but he had given a termination of the lease months before, so there was a lot of inconsistencies in his statements. So either way, I wasn't going to pay anything, but it was just more, do I want to keep adding more money that I might lose? Yeah, so he just said, look, you have to fight to the end because there's a really solid case here. Like, it's pretty obvious what's happened. You didn't take possession of the property, and the property didn't have a fully valid HMO license, so it would have been illegal to let out the property in that instance. So I agreed, and then I continued to fight. We had one more hearing, and then we went for that. Then we were told that the case was going to go to trial. So this was really good news for me because I was tired, okay? Like, this is more than a year now at this point, and nothing was happening. I was just spending money. He's not filing in anything. All his filings are late. They are not done properly. He's not getting a legal representative or solicitor to help him put together all these court documents. Again, I'm not sure if he thought he knew everything or he was just so confident that this was how it was supposed to go. So I'm not an expert, and I know what I'm not good at, so I just decided, you know what, I'll pay because I don't know how to do these things. Even though some of the steps are quite clear, I'd rather get someone who does that every day. So yeah, then we got a trial date. So before the trial date, you have to put in a list of a disclosure list of all the evidence that you've had to present to the court. Everything you've sent before, everything you haven't sent before, witness statements, all the papers you filed. And then you're also given dates to give that to the other party. The other party then has to file the same. And then if you want to request more information from the other party, you can do that. So we did that by the specified dates. Defendant did not file anything again. Okay, so at this point now, I'm just thinking, this guy's taking a piss. Anyway, I'll do what needs to be done to trial. But he's just not doing anything. He's not communicating. He's not asking for anything. He's not filing anything with the courts. He's not paying the court fees. Okay, do your thing. So then maybe a week before trial, so all of these filings done maybe 3-4 months before trial date. Only a week before trial, then he comes with an email to the court saying, well, sorry, I lost someone in the family. Now, I have to file late. I'm so sorry. There was nothing I could have done. I'm ready to pay. Everything was done late. Okay, now, not to be insensitive, but you've literally had 3 months and you could have filed to the court to say, I've lost someone, can I get an extension of the deadline? He didn't do that. So anyway, we go to trial on the day. I'll probably show a clip if I have one of the day we went to trial, and it was pretty scary. I've never been, other than these hearings that I'm talking about, I've never been in court, so I actually didn't know what that would be like. And then we got to the courtroom, and then his barrister came, no shade. It was the most laughable situation. Everything was so out of order. It gave me a bit of confidence just looking at this too. Anyway, we went into the courtroom and then presented the case. So the judge called me to the stand first. Oh my God, I was shaking, and it was a scary moment for me. And reality, it really hit home, like just how things can get so hectic in business and how you need to be careful which contracts you're using, what you're doing, like just be on the right side of things. So I'm in the court stand and the opposing party, so the barrister of the opposing party is asking me all sorts of questions, and he's driving this a random point, and I am trying to maintain composure between, being like, I don't want to be emotional, because if I'm emotional now, you're saying all sorts of irrelevant things. You still want to state the facts. And he's driving this thing that I claimed that he's a liar and his business is fraudulent, which I never said. I only said it would have been illegal for me to operate without a license. That was my argument, and that if I didn't know that this license actually wasn't valid, I wouldn't have entered into the contract. So that was just based on misrepresentation. That was the whole argument of the case. So that's what I was arguing, and I continued to nail in that fact that I wouldn't have entered into this contract if I had known. So then, and also the judge would ask me certain questions, and I'll, answer back. And in that courtroom, the defendant is raising his, it was also almost laughable, raising his hand, trying to interject the judge, and it was just not a good look, right? And then he got called to the stand, again without stating too many facts of the case, but it didn't go well. Now, it turns out you can actually let out your property if the application is pending for an HMO license. I did not know that. But if that was the case, he should have said, so that was just the defense. He should have said that, you know, I have submitted for application, instead of saying I have a valid HMO license. So, and then we had a break, so the judge wanted to decide. Anyway, long story short, we won the case eventually. And during one of the breaks or in the trial hearing, he refused to have a conversation with our lawyer in terms of the payment terms. So, you know, it really didn't go his way. But essentially, we won the case, so we won back all the money, the deposit and the rent, which is about 16 all in all. And then you've got all the legal costs, which are, to be honest, I didn't get all of them back because there was a technicality there in terms of to whom some of the costs were paid, but I got a good bulk of them, so I got an excess of 5k, which was good. It wasn't everything, but I'm just glad that we got out of it. We won the case. But I think there's just takeaways from this for me and for everyone really. First of all, if I hadn't asked for the 6-month break clause, it would have been a big thing. Now, that wasn't used in the court. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention as well that the judge struck out his defense completely because he filed late, he paid late, and also mentioned the fact that he could have asked for an extension of his deadline, but he did not. So court rules are court rules, so that was completely struck out. Again, even if it had been taken in, there wasn't much. He didn't really do much revision on his statement, and then he instructed his barrister 24 hours before the trial date. Like, he just wasn't prepared, he didn't care. But anyway, back to my takeaways. I would say read your contracts carefully. I am glad I asked to put in that break clause. If anything, if ever he came back, I can resort to that break clause because that's something that we put in there that he didn't have in his contract. I'd also say, you know, maybe speak to people who are more experienced in that particular transaction. So you will encounter so many transactions in business and they're all unique to your business. But try to find people in your business or in your niche who have done the exact same thing or maybe in a similar scenario, and see if there are other things that you may be missing or you may need to consider, and it would help you. Like, for example, I would have, if I had done that, someone would have told me that, you know, this doesn't look right, or this part of the contract doesn't look right, but because I didn't, and I was just glad, you know, that I finally found someone who's willing to do this, I just went with it. I had the funds at the time and I just went with it, but that's not the right way to do things in business. You could end up losing a lot more. Another thing as well I'd say is have a headroom in your cash flow for the unforeseen. So if I were him, maybe he has anyway, but if I were him, or if I'm someone and I know someone's filing a claim against me, set aside money in case you have to pay back that person. So we call this provisions in accounting. You must have a provision for any legal case that is more than likely that, you know, will be against you. Actually, maybe not just more than likely. If there's a possibility that it might be against you, just set aside a provision, because what that will do is you will have the funds to pay. So our court case, we offered him 28 days, but the judge actually wanted 7 days. So I'm trying to imagine if I didn't have that kind of money and I was ordered to pay within 3 days or 7 days, how would that have worked out? Because if you don't, you then an order against you, and then it's then put as a restriction on your properties or in your business. It's not a good look. It's not good for your business. You can't do business with so many people if you have those kinds of records on your business. So you just want to make sure you have a provision, money set aside so that you can pay if anything did happen. Another thing I would say is rules are rules. Don't take things for granted or systems for granted, especially legal systems. If you are told that this is the deadline and you need to do something, do it by that date, even if it means nothing to you, even if you can do it better than everyone else. Just do what you're being asked to do. So whether it's filing deadlines or your accounts or HMRC or anything to do with regulations or the law, just stay on the right side and follow the system, even if it's nothing to you. If you think you're not going to be able to adhere to those rules, communicate, call and ask them for an extension. It's going to help you, and those conversations will always be on record. And so there's a record to say, okay, they tried to reach out to say they can't meet this deadline, or they can't make this payment, and everything will be in your favor if you communicate. So it's like any relationship, really. If you communicate, things are in the open, it's on record, people can help you, and it works out in your favor.